Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to the Ghost and Molly McGee episodes 19 and 20, the finale of the season. And we're doing both of these last episodes together, mostly because by the time episode 20 came out, I had not seen episode 19 yet, and I have been doing a shit ton more work than usual to avoid spoilers. I don't know why everyone is suddenly talking about this. Maybe it's because Amphibia being over and Owl House season 2 being finished, a lot more people have gravitated towards this series than before, which I'm happy about. I'm excited about, but at the same time, it means I'm having to do a lot more work than I ever expected to avoid spoilers for it. But that also makes me think, what the hell is this finale? If people are trying to talk about it this much. I haven't actually seen any, notable spoilers or anything. It's just, I have managed to avoid them. But I'm seeing a lot of, again, I'm having to do a lot of work to avoid them. Because there's been a couple times where I've really been close to getting spoiled on shit. But either way, last time we got what I thought would have been a finale episode for this series. It focused on the McGees losing their house and having to leave, which meant obviously leaving Scratch. And because of this, the curse was broken, which we found out in the end. This is kind of a big deal. It was a very big plot point that they had built up to, and everything kind of revolved around with the curse and all. And now they were being kicked out as well, which this was supposed to be their forever home. Everything was again being built up with this community, with all of the friends and connections they were making. So it was very huge, and it felt like a finale to me. And mind you, they got their house back in the end, with Andrea gathering the entire town together, which, by the way, fucking hell, I love her. Andrea is such a great character, just in general, in terms of comedy and entertainment value. But she has also grown as a character. Especially since Molly did save her neck during that entire, I think it was Nougat incident. I think that when Andrea said in that last episode that she saw, Molly as a friend and everything, and I think she was being extremely genuine. She was still being Andrea. She was still being herself. But I think she was being entirely genuine. That she sees Molly as her friend, and that because of that she wanted to help her here, which is amazing to see. And granted, Andrea's her face turn, I guess you could call it, her going from being a bully to a bad guy, or to a good guy, was a lot less involved than, say, with Pacifica from Gravity Falls, or obviously Amity from Owl House. Those ones took a lot more work. With Andrea, it was definitely a lot more sudden and quick and everything. But I've kind of stated this before. Andrea was never really that bad. We only saw her be that bad in one episode. Her first episode, her debut. And she was only acting that way towards Molly because of Molly messing up her name so much and probably making her feel insulted and shit. Like, that doesn't excuse, like, what she was doing in that episode necessarily, but every other time we've seen her since, she has not been that bad. In fact, she's been fine. She's been Andrea. She's been over dramatic as fuck. She's been absolutely ridiculous. But she's never been antagonistic. So it's a completely different dynamic, I feel, than with Pacifica or Amity or anyone else like that. Um, in fact, you know who I'd compare it to more? This might be a weird comparison, but for those of you who have also watched this, you might be able to get it. Princess Pip Petals from My Little Pony: A New Generation, specifically the movie, not the special or the show, though it's the same character, same continuity, so technically, yeah. But I'm specifically referring to in the movie. Pip is not an antagonist at first, but she's very much against the others. When they first head out and everything, Pip is very sour towards them. She believes that they ruined her career and her popularity and everything, and she's, especially towards Zip, she's being rude and insensitive and everything. Not even listening to what everyone else has to say, but pretty quickly, as they're traveling, she warms up to them. And all of that just goes away. She's no longer acting like that towards them. She's accepted them. Especially after Izzy helps find her aura color or whatever. But yeah, it reminds me more of that than someone like Amity or Pacifica, who it took a little more work with and a little more development with. Like with Pip, it was a lot more sudden, but you still saw the steps that it took to create that sudden change of character. With Pip, it was the others showing that kindness to her, and Izzy specifically telling her that her aura was glowing. What was it, her sixth favorite color or something like that? It was something like that. But that's what caused her to drop her prejudices and her irritations at everything that had gone down and to accept them. And here, Andrea was simply, again, she wasn't never fully antagonistic, but the thing that truly made her turn over to being Molly's friend, even if Molly didn't fully realize it, was when Molly protected her image. When Molly made sure that she looked good, because Molly realized that Andrea just wanted attention and love because she wasn't getting it from her parents. Which is really fucking sad, by the way. That is still really heartbreaking that Andrea's entire motivation was to try and get her parents to love her. Like, Jesus, that is really emotionally heavy. But yeah, so the fact that Andrea, getting to the point again, was the one that brought the entire town together to save the McGee's house is amazing. It's just a great moment of development for her character. And even if she, again, was being Andrea during it, you know she meant it. That she did genuinely do this because she wanted to. Not for the clicks and everything. She'll take that, but that's not why she did it, and you can tell. And so, yeah, that felt like such a huge finale, but there's more. There's 2 more episodes. So what the hell is going to happen? How are they going to top that as a big finale for what is essentially, at this point at least, a slice of life show? Like, oh goodness, my neck feels stiff. But yeah, it's like this series hasn't really had any ongoing plot. It's had a little bit of a connected, continuing storyline to a degree, but it's been rarely touched. They've like almost never done anything with it. Like maybe what, 3 segments have touched on it since the beginning, and it's just like, and I'm not just counting like mentioning the flow of failed phantoms or whatnot, like actually touching on, oh, this is clearly a main plot point episode or segment or whatever. Um, but yeah, it's like, what the hell is going to happen? It's got to be related to that, right? It has to be related to Scratch being punished and the flow of failed phantoms and all that. Maybe he is going to get thrown in and somehow has to be saved. I have no idea how the fuck Molly would save him from that, but maybe she'll get help from like some of the other ghosts that she's befriended. There have been a couple of them now. um, Jeff is one of them for sure. That would be an obvious choice. I don't know. That's the only thing I can really think of. But the thing is, wouldn't Scratch have been doing well lately, especially with the scares that he did trying to scare all those potential home buyers out of the McGee house? It's like, I don't know. I just don't know where this is going to end up. But this is the finale, and there is a season 2, I believe, already ordered. It's been ordered. Um, so that will come at some point in the future, and obviously we'll react to it when it comes. But I'm very excited to see how season 1 closes. This series has been honestly amazing. Even with its episodic nature, it handles it extremely well, to where most of the time you don't even worry about the fact that it hasn't had like a main plot yet, or at least not super heavily focused on. Um, and it's wonderful to see a series that can really handle that right these days, because not a lot can. Most shows either need a balance, something like the Owl House, where there's a lot of episodic stuff in it, but it does still give this ongoing story, some ongoing plot lines and all. It's really hard to have a series that is just purely episodic for for like what, 95% of it, because I feel like while some kids would be able to handle that well, a lot of the viewers of animation these days aren't kids. A lot of them are teenagers and even adults. And a lot of them want some kind of continuing storyline. They want plot. I mean, that's the most impressive and beloved stuff of the Owl House, the plot related stuff. That's the stuff that people talk about the most. Same with even older stuff like Gravity Falls or Amphibia. Even the best parts of Amphibia are 100% the plot related stuff. Like, you kidding me? But it's just, I want Ghost and Molly McGee to have an ongoing plot at some point. If it's not right away, and if we just get little bits and pieces of stuff like that here, then okay, I trust that this series will still be able to handle itself well. But I feel like it should go into that. I don't feel like a show that is just purely more episodic like this would be, I just don't feel like it would be as impactful as it could be otherwise. And again, I've been saying since pretty much the beginning of this series that there is so much potential for some amazing plot lines here, and that it would be a waste to not cover them. I think it's just going to be like one of those shows like Gravity Falls or Amphibia or Owl House, where it starts off very episodic and it eventually goes into something a lot more exciting and plot heavy and whatnot. Maybe not as much as those other shows, but I very much see it going that route. And I know some of you disagree with me. I've seen your comments and all. I'm thinking like this series should remain more episodic and all. But I'm just speaking from my own tastes, my own interests, and what I think is honestly going to be best for this show going forward. I feel like, personally, I feel this show would benefit greatly from having that kind of stuff pop up. And I feel it would allow it to become bigger because, again, more people will be drawn in by that. It'll allow for a bigger audience than has been there. I mean, if this finale, I don't know what's going to happen, but if it's any clue that the fact that it's gotten such a massive out of nowhere uptick in attention since the finale came out, it's like, what does that mean? That has to mean that they did something very plot relevant, right? That has to mean something big happened. And if something that big happened to where Ghost and Molly McGee, which is very rarely, if ever, actually talked about like on social media from what I've seen, is suddenly getting to the point where I'm having a tricky time avoiding all the spoilers because everyone's talking about it, that's impressive to me. That tells me that, again, something big must happen in the finale. And that people are talking about it. And it has to be something plot relevant if it's going to be that big to completely change the dynamic of how fandom communities have been seeing this series. So yeah, hopefully this finale does well in that regard. Now, I don't know if 19 has anything to do with the finale either, or if it's just 20. I just genuinely don't know. So we might get one more little slice of life episode before the finale, or it could even tie in somehow still. I don't know what to expect. I don't know the titles. As always, I don't look up titles beforehand because I feel it spoils the reaction. As I always say, I feel like reactions are always best when they're as spoiler-free as possible. So I don't look up titles even because I feel like, again, that spoils the reaction. You can glean a lot from a title. And sometimes with some of these shows, the titles are pretty spoilery. Let's be honest. So, anywho, I've been talking for quite a while, this one, but it is a finale. And that means we will have to replace this with something, and I'll talk about that in the afterthoughts. But, for the meantime, let's just get this going and hope for the best with this finale. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episodes. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So we're just not going to talk about this. We're just going to move on. Molly literally killed the chairman. She literally killed Death. And we're just not going to talk about it? We're just going to ignore that? This drastically changes a lot. Like, the chairman is dead. What's going to happen with the hierarchy of the ghost realm? What's going to happen with scare reports and the Ghost Council and everything. This is a massive deal. And I don't know. And the weird thing here is the chairman never really had like any kind of personality or character. He was just kind of always there and just making judgments. He never actually did anything. So there's not like any like, the loss is more in regards to his position. Could anyone be the chairman? Like what was the chairman as we knew actually even powerful at all? There's a lot of questions that this raises. A lot of questions. And this can't just be left to nothing. There's got to be follow-up on this in season 2. This is too important and too big of a deal to just leave off like this. I have no idea what's going to happen. Like the chairman didn't even try to defend himself or anything. He knew what Molly had been doing. He knew about the joy and everything, and she just went up to him, easy peasy, touched him, and blew him up. I don't know what to think about this. Because it's like, I mean, I enjoyed the finale, don't get me wrong. It was very good in that regard, but, like, what do I think about, like, where this leaves things off at? Like, at least with the last episode, episode 18, it felt like a very concise, by the numbers, finale. This one is just so different. But let's talk about each of these segments. So 19A was Scaring is Caring, and Molly is trying to take over all the scares for the day, while Scratch is, turning cutesy. He goes to the ghost doctor. He has to handle everything. He's trying to figure out what's wrong with him. He's just filled with too much joy because of Molly. And Molly is trying to be scary, but is not good at it. Everything she's trying just doesn't end up working. And Scratch finds out that he, in order to get back to normal, needs to find his fear, what he's afraid of. So when he comes back, he finds Molly just quite a mess after trying to be scary, and it's maybe starting to work a tiny bit. But then he sees she's about to step out into oncoming traffic and about to be seriously maimed and injured, possibly killed. And it freaks him out, of course, because they're friends. They're practically family. So, with as scared as he is, he realizes that's his fear, losing her. So he saves her, and everything's good. It was a fine segment. I had no issues with it, at least. It didn't stand out as one of the best necessarily, though. Though obviously I'm going to have to watch 19 and 20 more times and definitely think things through before I make my list of my favorite episodes of the season, which obviously I will be doing. Either way, though, continuing on, 19B was All Night Plight. And this one was definitely more interesting. Molly wants to see a comet with Libby and Scratch. And as we find out later in the episode, not because of the comet itself necessarily, but because she wants to make a forever memory with her friends, because she's worried about what will happen when they grow up and are possibly separated by just, being adults at that point. So they stay up to see this comet, but end up having to have Molly's mother, Sharon, drive them to the country because too much light pollution. And Scratch is getting hungry because they accidentally dropped their food box when leaving the house. And Libby, apparently when she stays up too late, starts getting loopy. But not like regular loopy, like really fucking weird. And it's hilarious. It's amazing. She starts like basically thinking she's in one of her fantasy books, starts talking like it, acting like it, starts just going completely nuts, and it's hilarious. It's amazing. But eventually some clouds come in and stop them from possibly being able to see the comet, and this is after a bunch of shenanigans of Molly trying to get the other two under control and facing some buffalo and all. But Scratch ends up helping them by turning into a hot air balloon and lifting them up, and they all see the comet, they all cry, it's beautiful. Nice moment for everyone to share. It's great. And the segment itself was pretty enjoyable. It was fun, it was funny as hell. Libby continues to be best character by far. I had a blast with this one. It was definitely better than Scaring and Scaring. And I enjoyed it, just generally speaking. But then we get into episode 20. 20A was The Jig is Up. So it's found out that Brighton is filled with joy, too much joy. Scratch tries to make excuses, but is assigned to work with this character. Oh, God, what was her name? Trying to think of her name, and I can't for the life of me think of it. Hold on, let me mute that and play this so I can get to the credits. Jinx. Her name is Jinx, but she was called something else as well. Killjoy. That's it. She was called Killjoy. Yeah. The Killjoy Jinx is assigned to work with him, and they're supposed to find whatever's causing this huge uptick in joy and stamp it out. So while Molly's doing this big day of joyful activities, Scratch is trying to distract Jinx and get her to not realize what's going on the entire time. Unfortunately, it doesn't end up working, and Scratch is punished for having a human friend, and is dragged away back to the ghost realm. It ends on a really harrowing note that may be one of my favorite moments in this series so far. Just single moments in the series. The segment of the episode ends showing the logo, the Ghost and Molly McGee logo, and the part that says the ghost and is swept away, just leaving Molly McGee. It's such a harrowing but perfect touch that they didn't need to do. They by no means needed to do that. But the fact that they did go that extra mile to make that as depressing and heavy as possible, it amplified the moment so much. And I think it was exceptionally well done. So I can't really talk about 20A though without talking about 20B because it's I don't know why this wasn't just done as a double length. Like, why did they have to actually have two separate parts? Probably, it just seems like they did it just to have that the moment with the ghost and part wiping away. Because there's no other reason to have two parts here. They could have just made it a full parter. It felt unnecessary. Because both parts, they're basically the same story. Nothing is different about them. It's a single plot thread, and you could say the same about episode 18, Out of House and Home is Where the Haunt Is. Both at 18 and 20 feel like they only needed to be a full one-parter, a double length, having only one segment instead of two. There's no reason to have two segments here to split it up like that. But so my thoughts on episode 20 are for the whole thing. So let's talk about 20B, Molly versus the Ghost World, which is, if this was just a full parter, that's what the entire episode should have been called. So Scratch is taken for trial, and we get to see all these characters we've seen before, all these ghosts. And we just kind of see, like, everyone's just speaking, like, basically that he's too joyful nowadays, that he's helping out too much, not being scary and stuff. But the things they're saying are, like, all really nice and all. So it's interesting. Meanwhile, Molly is getting Libby's help to try and figure out how to enter the ghost realm. And we see that she's having trouble in regards to that, because Libby's idea is basically using books to try and astral project, which just doesn't end up working. So Molly gets the idea to call in Jeff. And so I was kind of right about some of my thoughts about how this finale could surpass what we had in episode 18. So Jeff comes in. He wants to help, but he doesn't really see how he could bring Molly to the ghost realm. She tries to rush through the portal just on her own, and it ends up basically removing her spirit from her body. Which, by the way, is kind of freaky. It's, like, genuinely kind of scary as a thought. Her spirit is spliced out of her body, leaving her body basically an emotionless husk, while her spirit is a joy-filled ghost of just anti-ghostness, apparently. I don't know how else to put it. But because she's like this now, Jeff is able to take her to the ghost realm, though upon arriving, it's seen that everything she touches and interacts with, she spreads joy to, which is apparently bad for the ghosts. We find out that the chairman of the council feeds on the fear, that's the reason all this fear is done in the first place. All the scaring is done because the chairman feeds on fear. Scratch didn't even know this. And it's not, I don't think it's really said if the chairman would die without this, but that's just how it's explained, that it's what the chairman feeds on, and the chairman likes to eat a lot, I guess, so yeah, need to constantly be bringing in fear. That's why it's such a big deal. But it's kind of implied by that as well, that they're not necessarily, that joy doesn't necessarily do anything to ghosts for the most part. And I'm thinking that because of that, I'm thinking the only reason that Molly's joy killed the chairman was because he was full of so much fear. That because he had a diet purely of fear, Molly's joy counteracted that so heavily that he couldn't survive. his entire being at that point was basically built on fear, and joy destroys fear. So yeah, it destroyed him because of that. But Molly ends up getting to Scratch, and both are put into the flow of failed phantoms. Unfortunately, because of Molly's excessive joy, she takes over the flow of failed phantoms. And it's kind of like, at that point, what the fuck would you even do to them? Like, if they can not only escape the flow itself, but free others from the flow and just completely take it over and all, it's like, I can kind of see from that why I can kind of see why he didn't move when Molly, like, went up to him and all. The councilman, the leader, the chairman. I don't know why my mind was blanking. I've been saying it multiple times. Maybe that's why he didn't move or try to do anything, because he realized it's like there's nothing he could do. If Molly was strong enough in her joy to break out from the flow of failed phantoms and control it to her whim, it's like, what the fuck is he gonna do, you know? He's probably not all that powerful, everything considered. At least not that powerful. But yeah, they break out, kill the chairman, and then just say, peace, we're out. And Molly scares the shit out of them, and they just let them go, because again, what are they gonna do? But like I said, what does this mean for the future of things? What does this mean for the Ghost Council? What does this mean for the Ghost Realm? There's so many questions that this brings, and I really, really hope that Season 2, when that does come, doesn't wait to reveal all of that. I'm hoping that kind of stuff is brought up right away. But yeah, this was the payoff to the little bit of ongoing plot we've had. There's been so much build up for that, and now we got payoff, and they just went right for it. Like, this was insane, and this is just season 1. So I have no clue what the heck is going to happen from here. But no matter what, I really love this finale. It went hard when it didn't need to. And it really just owned every moment of it. Yeah, I would not say Ghost of Molly McGee is on the level of something like the Owl House, but it's proven itself to be really, really up there. This series has been great. Season 1 was fantastic. And like I said, you know I'm going to make a list of my 10 favorite episodes. I don't know if I'll make an updated list of favorite songs, because there hasn't been a lot since I made that last list. Like, I made that list between episodes 15 and 16 when there was that sudden extra hiatus. And there's just hasn't been enough new songs since then. There's been songs, just I don't feel like it's enough to really change the list yet. But I will definitely make a list of my favorite episodes. Just, it probably won't happen right away. Because I'm going to have to see episodes again and everything. And it's just, this was really fun. This was really good. I really enjoyed this. It was a great season. And I really hope that when season 2 does come, that honestly, I hope it blows season 1 out of the water. I want it to be even better. I want it to just continue with the insane, great quality all the way through. And probably even better in regards to, again, plot-related stuff. Because now that they've done this, it's like they've got to move more into plot related stuff from here. It's like you can't just go back into too much episodic. Like, yeah, there's going to be episodic stuff, but you can't go entirely back after something like this. You have to move forward and start implementing some more story related stuff into this. It's practically required at this point for it to just kind of work going forward. It just wouldn't really work to go back to just pure episodic nature. They definitely need to do a little more with the story threads in the next one, with the plot lines and all. But that brings up, what are we going to replace the Ghost and Molly McGee with? Because this was it. This is all we've got for now. Obviously, we'll get to season 2 when that eventually comes. But for now, we are done. So what do we do? Well, since you are seeing this after Dead End Paranormal Park started on the 29th and all, that took the Friday slot from being a First Impressions continuation slot, because I just didn't want to wait on that series. And Molly McGee itself, anyways, was a First Impressions continuation series. So right now, it looks like Tuesday and Saturday are just going to be First Impressions shows. That will probably change back, but we'll see. So, yeah, obviously we're going to be replacing Ghost and Molly McGee with a First Impressions continuation. And we have to get back to something in that regard, because before we get into anything else new, we have to get back to Jujutsu Kaisen. That is a First Impressions continuation series, and it's something that we've just needed to get back to. We watched the first half of it. I loved it. It was fantastic. But now we're going to be going into the second half of the season. And I guess season 2 is coming next year. But obviously there's also a movie. So we can get into that as well after the series. But yeah. So Jujutsu Kaisen, season 1, second half, I guess you could call it, is what will be replacing the Ghost and Molly McGee starting next week. But in the meantime, I would love to hear your thoughts on this finale of season 1 of the Ghost and Molly McGee. Let me know what you thought of how this ended, just the insane levels it went to, Molly basically being an unbeatable god that the ghost world has nothing to fight against. It's just like, Jesus. Molly killing a dude? Like, she literally murdered a person, a ghost, but still a person. She killed the chairman. Like, I'm still not over that. But tell me your thoughts on all of that and more down in the comments below. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.